In the last video, we pulled out the stereo while attempting to fix the temperature gauge, but what I found behind it turned into a whole new problem. I already knew the stereo didn't work, but I didn't know how bad it was. There's a mess of wires behind here, mismatched wire colors, wires are held together by only electrical tape, the stereo connector was just snipped off with live wires tucked behind the dash, there was no fuse on the amp power wire, which could be a fire hazard. It's a mess. If we're gonna drive this Jeep around this summer, we gotta have some music, so let's fix up this wiring and see if we can get it working again. Basically, my plan is to order the original factory connectors for the stereo and try to make it work with this one. So there's a diagram on here, and we do need a 0.5 amp fuse and a 3 amp fuse. So that's probably what these are for. And so my plan is to keep these fuses if I can, put them in line to the connector here, and then I can just plug it into the car and we should be good to go. So I'm just going to test these with the multimeter to see if these are even good. We do have some resistance, so this fuse should be good. That fuse also looks good. And this fuse is 20 amps. I'm not sure what this one was used for. And I'm not sure why this one is split off into two. Not really sure what he was doing, but let's see if we can figure this out. So pink needs 0.5 amps. And then I guess we can use this as our pink wire. Here's an actual pink one we might be able to use. Okay, so that should be good. I can just go to the connector. Then we need a 3 amp on the red. Okay, so we should be good. Everything's wired up like this diagram wants. It just wants those two fuses in, which we have, and we'll just get rid of these. Don't need them. Splice these into the factory connector, and then put the other end of the factory connector back in the car, and you should be able to just plug these in. And I don't even know if the stereo works, but at least we can test it, and then if we have the factory plug, we can easily replace it with a new one if we need to. Now here's the other end of the wiring. We've still got all of these random wires. One of them goes straight to the battery. There's the power wire. And then there's just some speaker wires here. And I'm not too sure what the blue one is for. And that just runs through down here to the back to the amplifier, which I don't know if that works either. But I'm going to try to, instead of just having these random wires, I'll try to connect it into the factory harness, which, unfortunately, the previous owner just cut them all off. So the battery is disconnected, but when the battery is connected, these are just a bunch of live wires floating around in here, which is probably not good. So my plan is to take some of this tape off, get a little more length on these wires, splice in the factory connector back on here, and then we can have that connector right here where the stereo goes, and we should be able to just plug in that stereo that we have. Hopefully it works. If it doesn't, we can replace the stereo and use the same connector. Now this blue wire is the remote turn on for the amplifier. So when you turn the ignition on, this gets power and turns on the amplifier there. Now this stereo doesn't have a remote turn on wire, the blue wire, for the amplifier. So I'm assuming that's why the previous owner had this red wire kind of split off. He was probably using that to turn on the amplifier. So what we could do is just pretty easily splice into this wire, have another blue wire coming off of here that connects to the connector, which does have a blue wire, the factory connector, and then we can just use the power for that remote turn on. And that'll only get power when you turn the ignition on. Or we can get a new radio that actually has the correct wiring. This one also only supports 2 speakers. There are the 2 stock speakers in the Jeep right now that I have no idea if they work. I have no idea if these speakers here work or not. The previous owner just had them wired back to these aftermarket ones, which I also don't know if those work either, so we'll see. First thing I'm going to do is, I've already got these fuses in here from the previous owner's wiring. I did rip off a few things. I'm not sure how he really had it wired, but I'm just following this diagram that's on the stereo itself. So pink has a 0.5 amp fuse that goes to memory. 3 amp fuse red wire goes to power. Yellow goes to the auto antenna, or in our case I'm going to use this as the amplifier turn on, so that blue wire that's in there. And green and gray will go to the positive ends of each speaker. Black will go to ground, and so will the return for each of the speakers. So I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do that. These obviously will just go to their respective wires, but then we'll need to somehow get this black wire and both of the return speaker wires together and connect those to ground. So I'm not sure how we'll do that, but I think I have an idea, because we do have that extra ground wire that's in the wiring harness. So maybe we can just splice them onto there. Maybe we take this ground and put a connection here or something. I'm not too sure yet. For now, let's just wire up this connector. Okay, so now if we connect this to ground, then we should have our ground connection, and we should have both of our speaker negative connections. So now we just need to find where we can get that ground connection. We've got the radio all wired up with one end of the connector on here. In the next video, we'll put the other end of the connector in the car. That way we can plug it in and test everything out. So I'll see you there.